Changed all the buttons. Oh, there it is.
Recording in progress.
All right, we have the living legend, Steve Laffey, back on the program, former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island, a former U.S. presidential candidate. He does have a book out, a movie. We'll get into that at the end. I do want him to tease that again at the end. So hopefully people that are listening will watch and check it out. He's been Nostradamus throughout the years, and he's hitting the marks right now. Steve, thanks so much for always coming on here. Really appreciate your time today.
Love being with you, Rob. Go ahead.
Steve, so let's talk about this. I mean, I voted for Donald Trump. I'm ashamed of my actions. I went to confession, pled to the priest for forgiveness. I hope God's forgiven me for that. I'll tell you what, it's truly sad what's going on in our country right now. I'm here down in Florida. The gas is up to $4.29 as far as the regular unleaded gas, and diesel is up to $5.29. Working people that voted for President Trump are starting to, I guess, wake up. You know, I'll tell you this, Stephen, I want you to get your opinion on this. I called in a conservative station in Delaware this morning. It touches Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. And I called in and just said, Donald Trump is a fraud and a phony. I fell for it. I apologized to myself and the country for voting for him. And he's totally in bed with the military-industrial complex. He's totally in bed, and he's got his family in bed in crypto and everything else he can get his hands on as far as stealing money. And we're starting to get people that would have called me a liberal on that station saying that I agree with Rob. I agree with Rob on Trump. So talk about this, Steve, because, you know, we're here hitting this in Florida, and it's the brunt of it, and this is Trump's now his home state.
Well, to back up, so people know a little about me, in 2015, I correctly said he would win and I would never vote for him. And I turned down 2 times in Colorado to speak either as him, because he couldn't come to debate John Hickenlooper, the governor at the time, or to run the rally. And I said to people, he has no ideology. It's going to be a disaster. He'll run an even more deficit. And he doesn't believe anything he says. And he's only into transactions that benefit himself. He has narcissism. On your show for over a year, and by the way, I correctly called in April of 2020 that he would lose. The PPP program, that was it. I correctly said 6 months before he won that he would win. I correctly said on your show that Biden would never be the candidate for 4 years. I said this publicly. Now, to get where we are today, Donald Trump, and what's breaking the back of MAGA is one thing: the price of oil. Really, no one knows the price of oil. It's 110 today at the barrel, right? And you can have Brent, and you can have WTC. This is what I do for a living, right? Not to bore people, but at $5 a gallon, it breaks the back of everybody who's a MAGA person, right? That's it. They're out. So Donald Trump, by the way, and just so we can take the opposite side. I've always believed that we needed regime change in Iran. I wrote about it in 1982 at Bowdoin College. 1982. So that doesn't mean, by the way, that I wouldn't have been, if I had been president, I wouldn't have been prepared for what was going to happen. Number one, what happens to the Strait of Hormuz? It's why people haven't done this. It's 21 miles wide, 2 lanes going in and out, and Iran is on one side and a number of other countries on the other side who don't have very much power, right? Who by the way, take Saudi Arabia as one country on the other side. Like when we went in for the first Gulf War, that's when we put in bases in Saudi Arabia to defend them, and obviously we're not defending them. What did Trump, by the way, never does this stuff. What did he not do? Did he make a giant speech about why we had to go in and showed what happened in 9/11 to try to avoid another 9/11, to show how many troops they killed in Beirut in 1983? He does none of this. By the way, did he do any? So Biden stupidly took 300 million barrels out of the strategic reserve for no good reason in 2022. He was a numbskull himself. Did Trump put all the oil back in before he went? Of course not. So there are things that you would do. I jotted a couple more down, just jotted them down. Did you take care of the Houthis who are on the other side in Yemen where the Red Sea comes in? Did you take care of the Houthis or Hezbollah so that you wouldn't have any problems with them, or nobody would have problems with oil in the Red Sea? Of course not. Of course not. What else did I jot down here? Oh, the other one was, of course, Allied support. Now, just so we know, the allies, let's call that Canada and NATO, just to say NATO. It's not really, has nothing to do with NATO in a sense, right? Because, but those countries, when it came to tariffs, reacted the wrong way every time. The only right way to deal with Trump on tariffs was, oh, you're putting 50% tariffs on us, 100% on you. In fact, we're not sending you stuff. We'll just suck it up. We don't care. And by the way, in Canada, we're not turning on the electricity in Michigan tonight. We had it from the very beginning. You have to be tougher than him, right? On the second side, no matter what he did going into Iran, let's just get to that in a second. The only response from allies is, sure, land your planes where you want. We'll send you a couple of planes. We don't have much in the UK. We only have one aircraft carrier. We have no fleet to surround the aircraft carrier. We'll start sending it your way. That's all. That's all you do. Every time they react the wrong way. So Trump had an off-ramp, by the way, on tariffs. He lost the case that I told you 100% he was going to lose. He loses and he explains to the American people that he just learned about tariffs in the IEEPA tariffs. He just read what was in them, and now he can do embargoes, which he's not going to do. Now he has new tariffs instead of just getting out of the tariff game, right? Getting prices to go a little bit lower. He didn't do any of that. Now, has the military done a tremendous job, given what we've been faced with and so forth? But here's the last thing that nobody thought of, and nobody ever thinks of before you do something like this. In Hong Kong, when the British got out, and there was like, oh, we're going to be fine, everything's going to be fine. Did every member or every person living in Hong Kong have a gun? No, they have no guns. So China took it over. Did anybody think about, okay, so we're going to have, there's like 13 real different ethnic groups within Iran and on the edge of Iran. Let's talk about the Kurds because they're more Christian. They've helped us out. We've screwed them a couple of times after they helped us out, not to get into this. Did we say to the Kurds, here's 50,000 Glocks. Here's 350 Gatling guns. Here, you guys get ready. We're coming. Did he drop? Do people within Iran and Tehran have the ability to shoot some of these crazy members of the IRGC? No. None of this has been done. This is the problem with Trump. And even today, is he doing his version back and forth because he's scared about how he's going to go down in history? Of course, that's what's happening. But remember one last thing. He couldn't care less about you, them, any other member of the Republican Party. He wants Democrats to win when he's going, so he can say, I was the guy who won. And so for all the MAGA people out there who are finally getting religion, people at my church who don't talk about it anymore, they used to be, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. I would just say things like, no, you're wrong. You don't have any facts. Are they finally getting their version of religion? I don't know. Again, I'm all for taking out everybody in Iran. I'm all for doing whatever has to be done, but I would have gotten prepared to do so.
But you also have Pete Hegseth leading the charge.
Okay, so his hiring ability, did people who voted from the second term not realize his hiring ability, whether it was his own building company, right? Remember, he inherited $300 million from his father and turned it into, adjusted for inflation, $300 million, let's say, right? So whatever, right? So even then, did he have the greatest lawyer back then who went to jail, Mr. Cohen, who became the worst lawyer in the world? Yes, he did. He had the best lawyer who became the worst. Everything, the best, the worst. Was John Bolton the greatest guy, then the worst guy? And I'm going to back everything. So when he hired nothing but sycophants, which I called sycophants on the campaign in 2023, I called Ramsawamy everybody, including the big fat governor of New Jersey, right? So I called everybody a sycophant because Chris Christie, by the way, I probably like him personally. He's quite a funny guy. But he wasn't really against Trump. He was like the Donald Duck comment in a debate. No one was against him like I was, saying, this is what's going to happen. And by the way, here's the last thing that's happening that we want to get into. Interest rates are going down? No, interest rates are going up. Right. Didn't I say when they first started cutting that interest rates would go up in the 10 years because the Fed only controls the short-term rates? Like, yeah. What do I have to say to people to wake them up? I'm almost giving up. I went on a campaign saying,
damage can a president do in 4 years? Because this is almost like Biden 2.0, what could eventually happen fully.
Yes. Here's a better question. Since Bill Clinton, who was a decent president, not a decent guy, right, who balanced the budget, realized that he had to get together with the Republicans. And again, I'm not a big Clinton fan. I'm a Reagan fan, right? I'm an Eisenhower fan. I'm a Truman fan. I'm a John F. Kennedy fan. I'm not a Clinton fan. But let's just say since he left office, okay, did things get better or worse? Like, was George Bush really qualified like his father to be president? And I met George Bush. Great guy. The answer is no. The answer is just no. He wasn't really qualified.
You could say Obama was a nice guy, great guy, smart guy.
It got
qualified, no.
But it got worse. Obama was worse. Trump was worse. Trump won. Biden was worse, if that's possible, than Trump won. I mean, the PPP program, the whole thing is crazy. Over the overspending. But Trump, too, is the worst of the worst.
Because the country is ran like a reality show.
And the people, the MAGA people, the people who haven't been educated, who aren't willing to sit down and analyze facts, right? They're worse. Trump is only a reflection of the fact that you're going to vote for someone you saw on TV a long time ago.
Well, Steve, the whole thing is you go up and do a political speech, and half of the, or more than half of the audience will be drooling.
Yeah.
And Trump goes up there, and they'll be going like this and dancing
Yeah.
and stuff.
No, I mean,
it's not a derogatory comment against you.
No.
It's factual information of what's happened to the country, that we used to have people that would run for office, and specifically name people like John F. Kennedy, people that were war heroes, John McCain. I know you had issues with him in the past.
Would have been a very great guy.
But we don't elect people like that. We don't elect people with intelligence. The people we elected, they're the lowest intelligence, not the highest.
So when I ran for president and talked about all the long-term things that had to happen, fixing Social Security, here's how we do it. By the way, it's at stevelaffey.com. Here's how we're going to enlarge the middle class. Here's what the tax code needs to be to take in a lot more money, not this big, beautiful disaster, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, anybody listening to the show who got these tax cuts and no tax on tips, all the crazy stuff, right? All the stuff. It's all been taken up in the price of oil. Like all the cuts
on tips thing, all that stuff is gonna end after 4 years.
Yeah, it's everybody know. When I say, listen, here's what happens. When I say everybody has to pay something, everybody agrees. They may not clap. When I say everybody has to pay something, I don't care if you made 12 grand, you got to pay $100, just so you have skin in the game. We've now taken 51% or more of the people off the tax rolls for federal taxes. There's no skin in the game. So that's wrong. That's why we needed a fair tax, a flat tax, or Herman Cain's 999, again, as I say.
But to be fair, Steve, there are people now. We got a family friend that the daughter's autistic, can't work, nonverbal. She was getting $100 a month for food stamps, which is a joke. And now they just cut it because of the big beautiful bill to $24.
No.
I mean, that's pretty despicable,
well,
Steve.
The people making over $1 million a year got tax cuts, and the people making 50 grand are still paying more, because think about it, even with the price of oil. So get to the price of oil for all the people in the middle class making 80 grand or less in say Florida, where you're standing right now. I mean, just think about it. All that's gone. Like, you're going to have to go to work. You have to air condition your home. So even if the war ends tomorrow, I'm not saying Trump could just leave tomorrow, I guess. His statement, by the way, so we have a president that on Easter Sunday drops the F-bomb in a tweet / True Social to everybody in the world.
Well, he's not a Christian.
No, I'm just saying and so all of his things are very short term. He thinks that the price of oil will come down precipitously lower when he leaves the war. It's hard to believe. Now, would it go lower? It would go lower, I guess. But when Iran realizes, so here's the thing, people like Iran, countries, North Korea, whatever, you can never defeat them by saying we're just going to bomb them. In fact, go back 100 years and tell me
we didn't defeat Afghanistan. We left in disgrace.
Well,
so did the Soviets.
We left in disgrace because of Biden. If you do things like after Korea, you need to have
if Trump was in there, Steve, to be fair, if Trump was in there, he was going to execute pretty much the same.
No, I actually disagree with that. I always said, and I said it publicly, that Trump would say he would leave, but would never leave Afghanistan. He said he was going to leave, never left. Because, by the way, wouldn't it be nice to have that base there right now? Wouldn't it be better for the world? Again, we don't want to lose any soldiers, but we were losing 1 or 2 a year at the end. We already had the fixed cost in there. But wouldn't it be better to have a base to threaten Russia, to threaten Pakistan, to come down right now with B-52 bombers into Iran, to have a place to land on ground? It would be better. So that's why I said once you're there, not that I was in favor of being there, but once you're there for
Same thing with Iraq. Once you're there, you're there.
you have to be there. And that was the mistake of Bush. He wasn't. None of them were willing to be there. Biden, of course, didn't have to do anything about Afghanistan. So here's the thing about polls. Like, even though people say we'd rather get out of Afghanistan, they couldn't care less. They couldn't find it on a map. It's not a voting issue. Afghanistan was not a voting issue. It was a voting issue for less than 0.5% of the people of America.
Right.
And if we'd stayed there 30 years, their culture, like South Korea, try to imagine what South Korea was like in 1954 when we stayed.
Yeah.
It took 30 years till they stopped being a total basket case. 30 years, and from then 1984 to today, South Korea has kicked butt. Anyway.
So I want to end the conversation with this. Just going back into economic issues and how the Democrats are probably going to, for sure, win the House in a pretty substantial margin. And not even just that, they hypothetically could win the Senate.
Well, it's more than hypothetical. You throw in, I've said 3 months ago that they will win both. I lived through 2006.
Okay.
So
you think this is 2006?
Yes.
Was Bush?
Worse.
Okay. Okay.
Lost the House and the Senate, and the only reason I got a book contract with Penguin Books is because that happened after I lost my primary, because largely the Republicans, not solely, but largely, or some percentage-wise, the reason that happened was their attack on me.
Yeah.
For some small part, let's say. I'm not trying to say that people trying to remember the race, the primary, but lots of money dried up over the fact that the National Republican Party attacked a Reagan conservative office holder Republican and went to help a far left of Nancy Pelosi, complete whack job, Lincoln Chafee, in his political views. Actually, very nice man in real life to walk down the street, but his political views are so far left. But he was a Republican office holder, right? Just so crazy.
That's very true.
Yeah.
He did a horrible job as a governor as well.
He left with a 20% approval rating. Great, wonderful. Now he lives in Wyoming. And by the way, all these people lie. He lives in Wyoming because the taxes don't tax inheritance. His wife has a lot of money. He lives in Wyoming, but he's like, oh, I'm just out here a lot, so I guess I live here. It's just, people are they just lie. All these politicians. But people like it, I guess, right?
Running around, especially in the Chafee house.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But let's move on and finish this talk about this, Steve, because, the Democrats win the House for sure. If they do win the Senate, do a full sweep there. With that said, then obviously, we're back to 2017 again.
Yeah. No, I mean, what will happen is
impeachment trials.
Yes. And by the way, these impeachment trials,
Nothing gets done.
I think these impeachment trials, if this happens the way it's going to happen, they will impeach him. And then they will have enough votes in the Senate. Because once they start asking people about, so let me get this straight, Mr. President, you're keeping that $400 million plane? How did you? Once they start saying about
all the money his kids are
yes.
making through crypto.
Yeah. How about the Gulf country that put in $170 million into his coin?
Right. And the coins, and he's going to put his face on the dollar bill on the Kennedy Center.
Well, that's legal.
It's just truly out of control.
Yeah, I think they will find things then, and then he'll be forced to. If there was a betting market about like what's happening now, that I wouldn't. Would he be forced out of office if let's put it this way, if I found a betting market today, I don't do any of these betting markets, I just did it once. But if it was 10% that he's forced out of office before, either through constitutionally, Rule 25, whatever it's called, or being impeached, whatever, if the market was 10%, I would buy the 10.
Okay.
If it was 50, I wouldn't buy the 50.
But you agree that Vance is not going to be the candidate in 28.
No.
He's stuck with Trump. He's done.
Done.
All these people, and I kind of agree with what you said, and we'll end on this, is that there is going to be a candidate, but they're going to come now from outside the system, because these people like Ted Cruz is a clown, Vance is done.
They're all done.
DeSantis is done.
Yeah.
All these people that were with Trump, They're all dead now. It's over
Yeah.
for them.
No, it has to be somebody like me, not me. Obviously, it looks
Could
like.
it be somebody like Massey? I know you're not a huge fan of
No,
him. You like some of his stuff.
no, he won't run, and he doesn't have the personality. He needs to shave his beard. All these kind of things. I like Massey. He's not a presidential guy. No, there could be somebody we don't know right now that has lots of money, but he has to be
I think there's somebody that's going to come out, and I know you're not a fan probably of this person, but I'll get your last take on this. And I think this guy is very relevant. He's got a huge following. He's been on TV, has a big podcast now. Tucker Carlson.
Never. He's a
Well, hey, listen, I know you don't like him, Steve, but
no. I mean,
I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that like him.
well, listen. How could
He's
anybody?
fallen.
How could anybody like a guy who goes to visit Putin in Russia and says everything's great here? I think I lost you. You're. I don't know what happened. That may be the end. Tucker Carlson will never be the president of the United States.